Tutors make decks more consistent, and consistency is a better play experience for everyone involved. This is why people don't really have issues with things like tutoring for lands, with fetch lands or Kodama's Reach. However, when it comes to tutors like Demonic Tutor, a lot of people remove these cards because there's a belief that de-optimizing a deck somehow makes it more fun, or at least more fair. However, a deck which does things which feel unfun or unfair isn't going to feel fun and fair because you remove tutors that let you tutor up busted combo pieces or annoying stacks synergies. It's just going to now feel unfun, unfair, and less consistent. I want to play against consistent decks so I can make appropriate game plans against them. If I know the mono-red Krenko deck is going to double its goblins every turn, and that will mean that in 3 more turns I'll probably die to it, I can plan for this. I can make decisions around this timeline. For example, I can choose to wipe the board now to deal with the Krenko threat immediately. Or I can instead play a lifelink blocker and hope to survive a couple extra turns so I can cast the board wipe on a future turn. Or I can use my single target spell against Krenko and then also try to build up some card advantage so I have the resources needed to deal with him again in 4 or 5 more turns. However, against inconsistent decks, I can't do these calculations. If on any given turn a player might randomly go infinite with Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood and cause me to lose the game, then I'm going to feel like I might lose the game out of nowhere, and this fear will probably drive me to unfairly target the player with the inconsistent deck. Of course, the people who play these sorts of combos without ways to tutor them up will often get defensive and say, well, my deck can't even tutor these cards up, my deck hardly ever wins using them, it's not even really what the deck is about. But if you look at some bad math, we can see that these random 2-card combos are how those decks often win, and are in fact often exactly what they do. If we assume that in a 10-turn game the player draws 25 cards and they need 2 random cards to win the game, that actually gives them a 6% chance of drawing into that combo. Assuming a player should win 25% of games, that means more than 20% of that player's wins are probably through this combo. If instead of 25 cards that player gets through 50 cards, then they have more than a 25% chance of drawing into that game-winning combo. So all that is to say that this deck, which hardly ever does that thing and isn't even really about that, actually wins something like between 20% and 100% of its games, exactly because of that thing it allegedly doesn't do. Now, people might say, well, if I make 20 mana and draw 50 cards, I can win all sorts of ways. Why does it matter that it's with this combo? And I totally agree with that. But if your game plan is to end the game with some 2-card combo or some 4-card value train, why do we have to sit there and watch you do things with your deck which should really only be happening in the privacy of your own home? I'd rather play against a deck that's trying to consistently win by turn 8 than a deck which is trying to randomly win, but only after I have to sit there and watch it take 10-minute turns while it chases value. In defense of these players, I think a lot of them don't actually want to win the way their deck wins. I myself have many times made decks that chase value only for them to win in a way that I never really wanted them to, and a lot of people playing with cards like Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood are just trying to maximize value in an Aristocrats deck. Or if you look at a deck like Zaxara, you'll see people who probably just wanted to do fun things with Hydras or X-Spells, but can't resist putting in Freed from the Real and Penman's Aura. And then because Zaxara often lends itself to a playstyle where it ramps into more ramp to then cast some X-cost draw spell and draw 20 cards, it almost inevitably draws into one of these combo pieces, where it then generates infinite mana and does some infinite X-Spell stuff to win the game. For the rest of the players at the table then, this Zaxara deck simply looks like a deck that's trying to win the game by comboing with Zaxara, and they naturally tend to hate out the commander since it appears to them as primarily being one half of a combo which then ends the game. This feels bad if you're the Zaxara player who was mostly just trying to make a fun and wacky X-Spell deck and now doesn't get to make the fun and wacky plays they wanted. At this point, the player has 2 paths forward. They can either embrace the combo potential of the deck by putting in all the black tutors they should run so they can try to go infinite with Zaxara as soon as possible, or they can remove the combo pieces and add back in some more wacky and fun X-Spell cards. If the player chose to optimize for the infinite combo chain, then when Zaxara gets hated out, it won't feel so bad because it will probably be justified. Or if you take the combos out, then people won't feel so threatened by the commander, and then you'll have room to make the more wacky plays which generate you Hydra tokens. With the type of EDH I play, I would tend to want to build towards doing silly things like casting Power Sink for a bunch of mana to counter a spell and also create a Hydra token. But both strategies are valid. You just need to be honest with yourself about what your strategy is, and then have the good deck building discipline to commit to that strategy.